Hello and welcome back to Black Mental Health Matters. Now, our mission here is to encourage open dialogue around mental health among Black communities. Now, I'm your host today, Amanda Eke, and today we have a very special guest with us discussing healthy aging in African American communities, a mental health perspective. Everyone, stay tuned. And our only guest for today who will be joining me on this amazing conversation. Now, adding her. Perfect. Hey, how are you, Terri? Please do introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello, Amanda. I am well. Good morning, everyone. My name is Terri Floyd. I am a behavioral scientist where I study what motivates people to do the things that they do, as well as behavior. And I am a mental health educator where I provide or facilitate trainings that's focused on suicide prevention, as well as mental health youth first aid, as well as all things mental health. And I am excited to be here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, we're so excited. As I said before, now this is a special conversation on healthy aging in African American communities, a mental health perspective. Now, it's undeniable. It's gonna happen whether people like it or not. There's either one other option besides aging, and we all know what that is. So, Miss Terri, I really want you to explain to us. I mean, first and foremost, what is aging?
So that's a good question. When we think about, of course, the definition, we know it's the process of growing old. It's associated with like the changes in the dynamic of our biological, physiological, environmental, psychological, behavioral, and social processes. Of course, that's the technical side of things. But it's two quotes that I think about that are definitely something that I kind of used in to encourage as I get older each year as we have birthdays, because sometimes some people dread their birthdays. But if we take the aspect of looking at these two quotes, aging is not lost youth, but a new stage of opportunity and strength. Having that kind of standpoint or viewpoint is definitely more of a positive take on it. No matter, like you stated, age you're gonna have, it's gonna happen regardless. You're gonna get older. So if you don't get older, then of course there's the other that happens. And then the other is the other quote is aging is not an option, not for anyone. It is how gracefully we handle the process and how lucky we are as the process handles us. So again, it's all about mindset, and you can age gracefully with having a healthy and positive mindset.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for that. I think those are very powerful words to kind of ground us in this conversation. Now, I want to know, kind of in your professional experience, I mean, what are folks' biggest concerns in regards to aging? And specifically with us, with our Black community, what have you seen is what are people really worried about? What is kind of the top thing on folks' list when it comes to aging?
The top thing, especially in the African American community, that I hear a lot of times is the way that they'll say it is, I don't want to be in the way. Or if I get older, then that's when the community kind of pushes us to the side. No young people want to deal with older folks. And so with that mindset, it's like that's one of the things where they're afraid of, or more so have a negative kind of aspect or outlook as it's when it involves aging, because there the concerns of course with the physical health is like I'm not able to do the things that I used to do, and then if I'm not able to do these things, then what am I going to do now, as well as even I would think that as we get older, we worked hard all these years, that you will look forward to retirement. But sometimes there's more individuals that I'm hearing that are like the baby boomers that are now the age to retire, where they're actually concerned and saying, well, if I retire, then what am I going to do? Instead of just looking at it in a more positive light, it's just this, okay, I've done this all my life. And now that I'm getting older and I'm not maybe physically able or to a capacity to do it. And now it's like, oh, they're just going to do away with me. So.
Yeah. No, and what do you think that, I've definitely been privy and have heard kind of people have that same sentiment. Hey, I just don't want to be in the way. You know what I mean? I remember at one point someone older that I knew, he was like in his 80s, and he was like, the one thing people do when you get older is they forget about you. And,
Mm-hmm.
he said that, and I still remember that to this day. And where do you think that kind of sentiment comes in our society, where people just feel like we're getting forgotten as we age, which is something we all are going to eventually do?
Mhm. That is a good question. And like you stated, I've heard several older individuals that have stated that and still unfortunately state that. I think it's even with the standpoint of how we look at our community. A lot of times when we, in the beginning of the community, of course, we say it takes a village to raise a child, right? And so while we only focus on the child and that standpoint of the village, we forget that as we continue to grow, we still need a village. Like when we become teenagers, you still need that village. Once you become adults, young adults, you still need that village. And even as you become seniors or elderly, it's important to still have that village. When we only focus on just this one soul group, in which it's important to have the village for children, we need the village to continue to grow with us. And with that standpoint, we don't really see that. Like, we don't think about the mentors, we don't think about even the relationships with their families, because we don't want to do the intergenerational. It's like you're young, stay in a child's place. Here's the old people, we separate, and then we never continue to collaborate or come together. And so I feel like because we have that mindset, even at a young age, that still causes us to, as we get older, to isolate and separate ourselves from one another.
Absolutely. No, I think that you make such a good point, that isolation aspect. I love how you said, when we're younger, or when people have kids, the operational mindset is it takes a village. Why is that not just carried throughout your life? Like, it takes a village to just get through life. I mean, it's not just
Yeah,
to raise a child, but just to get through individual
absolutely.
life, it takes a village. You need that support. Yeah,
Mhm.
1000%. Now, kind of going into, like you had mentioned, aging is very much to the biological aspect. Now, what are some things, for us, especially in the Black community, in regards to aging, that we should be aware of? Like, what maybe affects us that may not affect other groups that you've seen in your professional practice?
Um, I would say the choices of food that we eat. I know we love soul food.
Yeah, really?
We
Okay.
have we
Yeah.
pass down the recipes. We pass down these nutritional meals that we think is amazing. But sometimes the way that we cook them or utilize certain ingredients, that of course causes issues with high blood pressure or chronic conditions like diabetes, things in that nature that we're looking at the standpoint of how we eat food, what we consume in that diet also plays a part and trickle down. Now, of course, sometimes then even with that mindset, it's like, oh well, I have it. I'm gonna just take the medication and not really consider incorporating diet and exercise, because even though you may have received the diagnosis and you may take the medication, it's still important that we can do what we need to do to help ourselves to live our best healthy lifestyles. And that could be cutting that sodium, taking away the sodium, and changing up some things. Instead of putting the fat back in your greens or whatnot, find good, healthier substitutes and alternatives. Because even though you still want to have those good nutrition meals, you can't make those good nutrition meals without having laying heavy on that sodium, which is causing harm to us. Incorporating more fruits and vegetables, exercising. Those are things that, of course, that all ages can do. But in particular in our community, sometimes we just look like, well, have the mindset, oh, my mom had it, or my daddy had it, or my grandmother had it. And so just because they had it, it doesn't mean you have to continue to keep passing it down. So that's one of the aspects that I feel like that we have in regards to our mindset. But also, on the other hand, when we think about the racial and health disparities or inequities, unfortunately, that we are at risk for a lot of things. Although the science and technology has improved and advanced in hospitals, in medicine, we can see on a constant cycle that there's still the disparities that are taking place. And unfortunately, that causes a decline in health. That causes issues when it comes to financial security and insecurity, where we have little to income or virtually no savings at all. And so that those are really specific that kind of hit the African American community a lot harder than, in my opinion, and based off of my research compared to other races.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It seems like there's maybe a little bit of a lag, but absolutely, Terry, I completely agree with you. I think that there is obviously health in terms of food. I mean, that makes a huge difference in your lifespan, what you're
Mhm.
putting in your body. And it kind of like, it hits you, I'm sure, at a certain point as you grow older, you do see those negative effects. Again, what do you think is that kind of mentality where it's like, where you see, and maybe you've seen this through your experience as a professional, what causes that mentality of, well, my mom and dad had it, I'll have it, whatever, I'll just, I'll keep doing what I do, it's just hereditary. What makes you think conditions people just believe in that, as of opposed to maybe just being like, hey, you know what, let me take a stance now, let me stop what's happened before? What makes people think that?
I think it's learned behavior. Unfortunately, I can even think of, because I grew up in the South. I currently still live in the South. I think of even some of my family members um, that look at the viewpoint of the age of when their mom or dad passed. And it's like, oh, well, my dad died from this. He died from a stroke. And that's how I'm going to die. And I don't know why we take that to account and speak that into our lives a lot of times. But it's just that learned behavior and like afraid of the unknown, and then are afraid to even make a change sometimes. It starts definitely with the mindset, with us learning and being used to and accustomed to having that conversation where we talk about it. But no one sometimes want to kind of make that change. And if you do make the change and you're one in that family that's trying to encourage healthier living or healthier lifestyles, you get more of a pushback. It's not until sometimes where I've noticed that when we become sick, and it's kind of like the last points where you really need to make the change now,
Yeah,
it's because you did everything or all of this, the diet and everything, and now your doctor's like, if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen, instead of us kind of being more preventive before it even gets to that point. So it's just the learned behavior and that mindset, which is
absolutely.
that is powerful.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's like kind of mentioning family. I mean, like, I think kind of the question of, especially as, someone matures in their adulthood, the question of, what do you do, what to do with mom and dad? Obviously, different cultures around the world, help nurture aging parents differently, and everyone's
Mhm.
situation is so different individually. What do you do with family members? How do you best support family members that are aging? How do you provide that best support for that person in your family that is quote unquote aging, especially past maybe 70 and up? How do you kind of best support them?
I will go back to kind of what we touched on a little bit is to be their village. I think if we go back to that mindset and standpoint to realize and recognize that with whatever stage in life, it's important to have that village. And even if you may not have the connection or the closeness
Yeah.
within a family, it's important to find a family. And that can be individuals, even if it's in regards to senior services that are available, that takes place that are specific
Mm.
to kind of the areas that we need. It's important to be in the know. Just like we're having more of a conversation about mental health. We're talking about mental health education. We're talking about how Black mental health matters. Also incorporate aging, because aging is going to happen regardless. And so if we're now being that village, being that support, and then getting the connections or networking with the communities that are available and out there and the services that are there to help, that can take place to helping those family members who are aging, or those family members that are caregivers to aging parents or aging aunts and uncles. It's a village. It's We need to get back to that mindset.
Absolutely. And it's kind of, one of those things that we really talk about, I find in the Black community so much, and has been a talking point a lot in recent years, is how a lot of, in particular, Black women are giving so much of themselves to nurture and take care of other people. A lot of us forget to take care of ourselves, and
Mhm.
that's such a key part, I'm sure, in the process of aging, is you have to take care of yourself. So,
Yeah.
how do you provide that kind of support for, people in your family, but also how do you, and at the same time, provide that support for yourself?
That is very good question. And I, like you stated, I see it in my family, think about even other families as well. I think the important is we have to be willing and comfortable to be comfortable in asking for help. A lot of times we want to do everything on our own. We want to have the superwoman cape or superman cape where it was like, I got this, I'm gonna take care of my family, I'm gonna provide. And which, great, that's what we're supposed to do. But also, a part of providing for our families to help them is to get resources and other individuals that may be skilled and trained in the area that we don't know about. We don't know everything. Even within my space of what I know, I
Yeah.
can study and know a lot, but I still don't really know everything. But there's other individuals that have training, that have the certifications, that have did the work, that we can connect to, that can incorporate and add into our village. Is we don't have to take all of this on our own and on ourselves, but we can reach out to the
Yeah.
communities that are out there and available to help ourselves as well as help our loved ones, to make sure that we're giving that balance to take care of our loved ones, still be the advocate for them, but also giving time to take care of
Mhm.
ourselves as well.
Absolutely not. And that kind of goes on to my next question, which is, how do we tackle aging? How do you just do that on an individual level? What are the best practices? Is this something you prepare for? Is this something that you just kind of let naturally happen? How do you do it? I think a lot of people are questioning, how do I do it? Or do I just wait till I'm older? Then I'll worry about that. Like, what is the process? What is an actual healthy mindset to have towards aging?
Mhm. Yes, good question again. With the tackle agent, it's definitely important to try to prepare as much as possible, not just wait until we get older and then figure out what it's going to be. Of course, we can plan, and life does not happen exactly that way. But many factors when it encourages healthy aging and how we can tackle it is that of course there's some things that are genetics that are out of our control. However, with incorporating exercise, having a healthy diet, making sure that we go to the doctor regularly, taking care of our mental health because mental health is a part of our physical health, to make sure that those things are within our reach. Having a good night's sleep. If the individuals that are smoking or drinking, limit that or kind of do away with it, because our bodies are our temple. So we need to do what we possibly can to take care of ourselves on our end. Even with that, when I talk about or mentioned earlier about the limit or the social isolation, limit that, because it's important that instead of us having the mindset of like, oh, I'm older, I know no one wants me to be around. I'm moving slower than what I used to do. When we have that moments of isolation and loneliness, that's when other things creep into our mindset. That's when depression, anxiety, and things take place. That's where higher stressors also take place as well. And it affects our overall mood. If we enjoy the leisure activities, even the things that we were doing, you may not be able to move as fast, but just keep moving, being active, getting involved with your family members. Again, if you do not have that closeness or a close relationship with your family, go out into the community. There are senior citizen community centers. There's plenty of things now that are available for seniors to have those hobbies. Get actively engaged. I know when my grandfather was living, he was one that would take advantage of the classes that were there. And even now, there's even college classes that if once you get a certain age, you can go to school for free. So if there's something that you wanted to learn after you retire, take advantage of doing that. Do not sit at home. Do not just think about, because I'm older, I can't do these things. You can, even if it's a limit of the way that you move, as long as you're physically active, as long as you're still having that cognitive abilities where you're meditating, you're working crossword puzzles, reading, talking, that is still helping you to develop and tackle aging. Will things, depending on diagnosis or whatever, genetics, will that happen? Absolutely. But we can do as much as we can to prevent it and continue to help us have the form or mindset of healthy aging.
Absolutely, that reminds me of something. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and she was just like, the most important thing you can do, and she's around her 60s. She's like, most important thing I think I've learned in life is just stay curious.
Yes.
Keep always push yourself to the next limit, no matter how old you are. Keep pushing yourself, keep learning, stay curious, stay dangerous. I
Mhm.
mean, really, it is
Absolutely.
about really trying your best to really keep pushing forward, regardless. Like, hey, you know what? Until you kick that bucket, I not.
That's
But you know what I
true.
mean? She really made it clear, like, keep pushing, keep pushing. It's not
Yeah.
over until you say it's over. So no, I love that. I really do love that. And I especially love how you keep mentioning this community aspect. I think a lot of us don't really think about that. Even
Mhm.
the school, the classes can be for free past a certain age. Kind of like I remember, at one point I was, in teaching K through 12, and it was so
Mhm.
many resources I think parents didn't even realize that they had access to help their children. And I
Yes.
almost look at it from even how you're describing it. It's the same way with, people that are older in our society, more
Yes.
mature. There's so many resources for that
Mhm.
community. What do you think that is? Where it's a lot of us may not even be aware of these resources in terms of aging and mental health,
Mhm.
community activities for people that are older. What do you think? What's up with people not being aware of that?
The promotion, honestly, because even what you stated in regards to like parents not being in the know or aware of like the services that are available, I think sometimes we still limit. Now, while everything is moving to social media, we still have to find ways to use that word of mouth, because word of mouth is bond. Like that's not going to change. If I will know about things by what someone has told me. A lot of times you news travels fast when you hear people talk about it. And so we don't really promote it or know that where, even if there's like a central hub where we can get all of the information for these resources. Here in where I live, there is kind of services that are available that they kind of do a little bit have done a little bit better in sharing kind of the information in regards to services for seniors or for elderly. But at the same time, sometimes it's only to a specific target audience and not really everyone. I feel like that it's important to incorporate that, especially in the African American community where church is still that's strong. That's still one of those pillars that need to
Yeah,
have those
yeah.
connections with the churches, to making sure to letting those individuals know, the elderly population or the older population that are in churches, to have those connections to those resources that are out there in their community. That will be the first place that I would definitely encourage, that even in the
Mm,
African American community, to have though that kind of hub, central hub, to let them know what resources are available for the aging population. Go to the churches. Start there. That's definitely important. But it's like the
absolutely.
word of mouth promotion.
Absolutely. No, yeah, I agree. I think that's still the best way to catch fire is just by that word of mouth. Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. Now I kind of want to move on to the mental health aspect of aging.
Mhm.
How, from your perspective, how is the mind and spirit really affected by aging? Let's start off there. How is your mind and spirit affected by aging?
Um, it's if affected by the way that we perceive things. If you have the mindset, kind of like what we
Mm,
touched base on a little bit earlier, if you have the negative connotation or the negative idea of what aging looks like, when we focus on the negative, that eventually passes down and it affects our spirit as well as our physical health. If you have the mindset that once you get to a certain age that you are unable to do anything, then what's going to happen? Your mind is
mm,
going to eventually connect with that body and it's going to start shutting down. Once you limit your, again, like I mentioned about the limiting the social isolation or limiting to not being socially active or physically active, when we start to decline and
mm,
taking time from that, cognitive will cause the cognitive decline will affect our physical. It'll affect our
mm,
spirit. Whatever we think in our mindset, mental health standpoint, it will affect everything else. When we have the mindset that if
mm,
I'm getting older or I'm old, no one wants to deal with me, I can't talk to anybody, or even have those moments where we want to speak up, but that internalized shame takes place and that guilt keeps us silent, that also leads more to more links and higher to depression, where we feel like that I'm in the way. And if we don't capture it or feel comfortable with talking about it, being vulnerable, because vulnerability is scary. And a lot of times we don't want to share that even at any age.
mm.
Um, Even if you have family members that want to keep you around, there are times that I have experienced and talked with older family members and older individuals like, oh, yeah, my family brings me around. But even though I'm sitting there, I still feel alone because we're not talking about it and we're not really confronting and not being comfortable with being uncomfortable and sharing what's really going on. And so with that mind body spirit, when that mind, whatever that mind believes or whatever that mind starts to think on and fester on, and it's negative, it will affect us, our bodies, it'll affect our spirits, and then it's just kind of like a ripple effect.
Absolutely. You touched on something really poignant there. You said, you have people where their family invites them around, but they still feel alone. It's kind
Mhm.
of almost this mental blocking of literally an older person will be there, but they still feel that isolation. I mean, how does someone that is older, how do you kind of tackle that? Where it's, hey man, look, my family invites me everywhere, but I still feel alone here. How do you tackle that?
One of the things that I can think of is just speak up. Especially in the African American community, sometimes we still struggle with utilizing our voice. We struggle with speaking up and speaking out, or even asking for help. Even when it gets to that point, thinking about even with my grandmother, she was one of the ones that even stated that although we incorporated her being around, and even me knowing and noticing a lot of things and me trying to encourage her to do this, it's still up to that individual. They have to kind of speak up and be comfortable with speaking up about what the matters of taking place. However, even if they're not at that point of being comfortable with speaking up, I still encourage family members, or I still encourage the friends that are in the community to continue to bring them around. One of the things that I've noticed with some of my training back in my day or whatnot, with touring like different nursing homes or whatnot, to see the aspect of having like preschools come to inside the nursing homes, and have the kind of that connection, that intergenerational connection with the children as well as the older or the elderly population. And to see the dynamic of them working together, seeing the youthfulness being brought back out into those that are maybe were on a physical decline, but them lighten up. And so seeing that that
Yeah.
young child and that older adult can connect and work together, and see how it they both feed off of each other in a positive way. I think that that's still that
Mm.
important standpoint that we can continue to do. But encourage to speak up, encourage. Sometimes not everyone is comfortable with talking with a mental health therapist or counselor, a life coach, or whatnot, but just creating that safe space to let them know that they're not alone, that we are here for you, and to help combat that internalized shame and guilt that they're actually dealing with. So,
Absolutely. No, I think you brought up a beautiful point. There's so many programs that really assist with elderly people, and elementary school kids coming in. I remember some of the best childhood experience I had was I volunteered at a retirement home when I was around middle school and high school. It was just a group of us kids that would come in every Saturday. We'd get food, and then we'd eat with the seniors. I mean, it really was like a pretty, really, when I think back on, a very life changing experience, because it's just, you don't really get that access to, and they don't get that access to us. We don't get that access to them, and kind of it can be a very beautiful collaboration on both sides. Absolutely. No, those are some really great tips and things that you're saying. Thank you so much. And I think too, it's there's no need to even start those practices when you're older. The idea of finding your voice, being able to speak up for yourself, those are some things that you can start from beginning. So I guess that kind of
yes.
goes into my next question. How do you stay happy and mentally well throughout your aging process, whether from beginning to end? How does someone just stay happy and mentally well throughout a life?
My two words that I just live by now is to be intentional. It's important to continue to be intentional. Like you stated, in regards to whatever age, it's important to utilize, be comfortable with your voice, exercise and learn about who you are, the things that kind of make you happy, to know things throughout life that make you mentally well, and continue to practice those, continue to remain active, continue to have that mind body spirit connection, but be intentional about it. A lot of times because life moves at a fast pace, we're so eager and so busy, want to move to the next thing. If we have goals, if we want to have checklists, we're checking everything off our box, instead of just at moments and times, regardless if already an aging adult or getting to the process of being aging, we don't be we're not intentional enough, where there are moments that we're present in the moment, that we're having our just be moment. And with that, it's important, because the only way that we will truly actively be happy and mentally well is if we be intentional, because we can have all of the accolades, you go to school, you can have all of this money and still not be happy, still not actually enjoying life. And so by being intentional, by encouraging, by finding things that make us happy, and being intentional about utilizing, incorporating self-care, something that we mentioned earlier, to know that asking for help, finding ways that we are taking care of ourselves as well as taking care of other people, because the only way that we can truly take care of our loved ones, whether they're aging or even younger as we're getting older, is you first take care of yourself. Self-care is absolutely important. So be intentional about that. That is the only way that we truly can stay happy and mentally well throughout life. So
Absolutely. No, you that is such a great point. It was crazy. I was just watching the Tina Turner documentary the other day, and I remember she had made a quote about aging. She said once she kind of left a very, terrible situation in terms of domestic, the first thing she did was I not even my career, not even necessarily taking care of family. It was I need to get myself right. I
Yes.
really need to get my mental health. I need to get my space right, and that's how I can be the best me that I can be.
Hmm.
And I think that's such a point that's being made. Self care really is maybe be mentally well and really tackle aging.
Yes.
Now, that kind of brings us to the point. You had kind of mentioned earlier. It's this thing of a mental blockage in people's minds. When I hit this age, I can't do this anymore. So the mind then connects with the body. What
Hmm.
I mean, so many people have so many opinions. Whether it goes, it stems into people's sex, people's gender, people's race. Here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do. I mean,
Hmm.
is there a right or wrong way to age? What's up with that? What is the answer to that?
Um, I would say the wrong way, kind of to age is to first definitely not prepare. Just to kind of go with emotion or focusing on the negative aspect of aging. Again, it's I that mindset. It's like the whatever we think in our mind, we're going to continue to fester on it. If it's focusing on the negative standpoint, it is going to become true after a while. It's like this, like it says, life and death lies in the power of the tongue. So whatever we think, whatever we speak, if it's not positive, if it's always on the constant negative, then that is going to happen and we're going to manifest that. And so having that negative mindset, those negative aspects of aging is definitely the wrong way of aging, because will things happen? Yes. Will there be things that are out of our control that happen? Absolutely. I mean, it's just a given. But at the same time, if we focus so much on the negative, we're the positive is overshadowed. And so that wrong way of to age is definitely not trying to, or at least being prepared as much as possible. And preparedness, that involves, again, like the healthy tackling healthy age with healthy exercise, making sure that you're still working on your mental health and your self-care, and trying to incorporate those positive mindsets, positive aspects, things that make you mentally happy, and mentally well. But yeah, to me personally, the wrong way is just having that not negative mindset. That negative aspect of aging will overshadow everything
Yeah,
else.
for sure. No, absolutely. And now it's kind of a question. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions about aging? What do people just assume and they're, wrongly assuming?
That once you get old, that's it. Like the mindset of the misconception of thinking that once you get old, that the younger generation push you to the side. That's why I really feel like, especially kind of like with my experiences with family members, as well as kind of the work that I do, how community is definitely important, and why we only limit
Mhm.
to the
Yeah,
village of with children, but everyone needs a village. And if we would change that mindset and have that concept of
yeah,
the way we view things, that would help a lot of these misconceptions that are taking place. Because it's like, while on one end we want to be united, or we put up this united front or saying that it's unity, but in a lot of times we still keep everything and everyone separate. And that's even within collectively in the African American community. It's
mm,
like, oh, you're a child, you stay at a child's place. Then you got the teens, you in this space, you are older, or you're
yeah,
now adulthood, you stay here. Now older adults are over here. Instead of us coming together to learn from each other, because we can absolutely learn from each other, but working together will be absolutely
yeah,
important.
yeah,
It can help remove some of those misconceptions that once you get old, that's it, you ain't got to worry about nothing else. But instead of them looking at it more in a positive standpoint, to this is my time to even pass down more of that wisdom, to pass down more of that not that encouragement to the younger people that are coming behind me, because not only are they paying attention to the things that we say, they're also paying attention to the things that we do. Something that you kind of mentioned, I'm thinking back on one of the questions you asked in regards to why is it, especially in our group or families or in our community, that we look at certain things or do things a certain way and not really prepare. And I said it's a learned behavior. Absolutely. Because a lot of times, even though as we get older, like you do as I say, not as I do, we can say that all day long, but our children and the young people or people that are around us are going to always pay attention to our actions. So if we're not finding ways
Yeah,
to go about healthy aging, promoting being healthier, promoting eating right, or this physical activity, removing ourselves or limiting the social isolation, then eventually that's what everyone else behind us is going to kind of pick up on too as well. So I think that's the biggest misconception
absolutely.
that I hear all the time about, is that once you get old, that's it, and you push to the side.
Absolutely. And what do you think are some things that we can kind of start doing to get rid of that misconception, especially in our community for younger folks? Well, because I mean, nowadays, I mean, people, you ask kids, like, literally, they'll be like, oh, 25 is old. Your retirement age of 25.
They do.
So,
They
I mean, what can we
definitely do.
do?
I just think it's important that we sit down and listen to each other. Having that communication is definitely important. A lot of times we, like you said, they will say 25, 35 is old or whatever. That you don't know what you're talking about. But instead of us kind of like pushing back and trying to prove each other wrong, because I think that's really what it is. It's like, I know what I'm talking about, you don't know what you're talking about. So everybody is in this combative standpoint instead of collectively working together, where we need to have these comfortable conversations where we talk about certain things, that we're sharing things, and just laying it out all on the table. I know a lot of times, especially even in my family and in the community, where I look at, they'll say, oh, you young, you don't know nothing about that. Okay, well, even if I don't know anything about that, why don't you educate me, enlighten me? But sometimes they don't even know either. And so I think it's important that we have the conversations to be vulnerable and
Yeah,
comfortable
yeah,
with letting me know that I don't know everything. However, we can learn this together, or we can communicate and converse about it. That's one of the ways that I feel that it's important that we can bridge the gap to kind of encourage the younger generation, and even the older generations, where we can collectively work together.
absolutely. And you know what, Terry, this has been, I mean, just an amazing conversation. You're dropping so many gems of wisdom and knowledge for folks, from your professional practice, your personal anecdotes. Really, really great information. I want to end on this question. From your professional experience, maybe it's something someone's told you personally. I mean, what is the best part about aging?
That, and I love that we're going to end on this question, especially considering all of the things that we kind of touched and highlighted on. The best part about aging is what I've heard as well, from individuals, as well as kind of like research in my practice, is increased free time. The two things that they mentioned was increased free time and the advance, and even from my kind of work experience and standpoint, to see the advancement of senior
Mhm.
services. So with the increased free time that is presented, that it looks like the open doors to a world of new possibilities and opportunities. Things that we kind of touched on a little bit, about the opportunities to have access to take classes for free, those where you can pursue those new activities that you always wanted to try, and you have more time to do so.
Yeah,
Spending time with family if you have grandbabies or grandpups, There's time where you can visit and travel
Yeah.
and spend that time, get connected with those
Yeah.
that are in your community. Even if you're not able to like travel out or don't have family members that are outside, go to
Yeah.
the senior centers where they provide those community that's specific. There are specific days and times,
Mm,
especially now when school's getting ready to start back. They have those set days and times at those community centers where you have the older population that are there that are learning new things. The advancement of, again, when it
mm,
comes to the senior services, like we mentioned, that in the past, that back in the day, years ago, really wasn't anything set for the older populations. Like once you get old, really, even though that mindset that they stated, once you get old, that's it. That's kind of how it was back then, where they didn't have services or didn't have resources or didn't have spaces for them. They did
yeah.
kind of just push them to the side. But today there are plenty of spaces like elder care facilities that can be incorporated, like you stated, the retirement homes, as well as even if there's things that you need rehabilitation, and if you need that specific care, that 24-hour care, you have that. But also there's aging in place now where there's technology that can be utilized and they're brought into your home where you can change
Mm,
spaces where I remember even in my class, in my gerontology program, where we were able to kind of use a kind of like an audit list to go look at your home to see like, okay, your home is like this now, but will you be able to age in place properly in this home, or will there need to be things that you need to remove? And so what things can you start doing now
mm,
to kind of prepare? Just like we have child proof, baby proof, but when our toddlers and children are getting older, there's things that we can age proof as we get older. If there's a rug that's not like stuck to the floor in a way, that's a tripping hazard. Or if there's cords that are out in the space. So there's things that we can
mm,
do that now that we have the information. There's walk-in baths that you can even get as a prescribed with your insurance to pay for it in ways to provide those devices as well as those changes that take place in the home. It's just we have to be in the know and know the access of where we can get those resources and to know how to get connected to the individuals that provide those aging in place standpoint, but also knowing that as you get older, the beauty of it is you have more free time to do the things that you've been wanting to do but didn't have time because you worked, as well as the senior care services that are available and out there.
absolutely. No, and yeah, that's such a beautiful thing. Yeah, I agree. You know, having the time to pursue the things that you never thought that you could. Right? It's not over till
Mhm.
you say it's over. Right? So I really love that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Terry. This has been such an amazing conversation, and there's so much about aging, and I really do encourage everyone, go out, be curious, and really just keep pressing forward. um, Thank you again so much. Terry, please do announce to us any social media tags, any websites where we can find your services, anything for us to check out more of the amazing work that you're doing.
Absolutely. You can follow me on my Facebook page and Instagram. On Facebook, it's the Know to Thrive Collaborative Coaching and Consulting, as well as Terri Floyd MS, that is my or Learning Architect, that is my Facebook pages. And then on my Instagram, it's the Know to Thrive Collaborative and T Floyd Speaks. And also, I do have journals that are available on Amazon that are focusing on kind of the mindset, encouraging self care. I have two new self care journals that were just published last month that they're available on Amazon. The King's Declaration, that's a man's self care journal, as well as the Melanin Goddess, which is for a self care journal for women. And so just you can find me on Terri Floyd on Amazon, my author page to follow me to stay in tune and update on the upcoming books and journals that I do have coming available.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, go check out all of Terry's amazing stuff. Like she said, there you go. That's where all her information will be. Check all of her stuff out. A big, big thank you so much to Terry for joining us today. And thank you all for turning into Black Mental Health Matters. Now, to support our show, please visit bmhm.org. Now, for the latest conversations on Black mental health, please join us next week. Everyone, same time, same place. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Terry. That was amazing. Yeah, that was really great.
It was. It was. I definitely enjoyed it. That was amazing.
Trying to